All right, Rob, really good story. And Mike Sando of The Athletic does this column where at the beginning of every year, he'll interview, 50 or I think it might be exactly 50, but 50 some odd, exactly 50 executives, scouts, talent evaluators around the league, all that. And about, various things, but one he does is the quarterback tiers. And his tiers before the season, we won't go through all of them, of course, but his top tier, and Rob G, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Aaron Rodgers, not in this order, but Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Drew Brees. Yeah, those were the 5 on tier 1. And there he revisited it, obviously at the midway point of the season, and some of the evaluators were saying that they were ready to drop Deshaun to the second tier. And Lamar Jackson, you might be wondering, well, where in the world was he? He was listed in tier 2. I would keep him at tier 2, but he was one that some execs felt was down as well. But we're going to focus on Deshaun. Here's what one of the evaluators said. When you watch him, you see elite toughness, you see elite leadership, but you don't see elite accuracy or a guy who gets the ball out quick. As an outsider or a fan, you look at it and say, oh, he's scrambling around. He still makes that throw. He's dynamite. As an evaluator, I'm thinking, why didn't he get that ball out earlier? It does cause some concern. And, Rob, I think, look, I'll be the first to admit, and I think you would agree, even though we do it, we all do it, quarterbacks get too much credit.
Right. They're too much credit and too much blame.
And too much blame.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
And so, to me, a lot of this is based on the fact that obviously the Houston Texans, who have made the playoffs, several times in the last few years, are 2-6. That's what a lot of this is based on. And I'm not saying the evaluator may not have a point about Watson. Certainly, he's got some things to learn. But he is on pace to have the best season of his career.
Doesn't feel like it, doesn't look like it. And I'm not talking about just the wins, Chris. I get the wins, and they do skew you the way you look at it. Right. And the way you look at, we talk about it all the time. I'm a big proponent of when are you accumulating these stats? Were your team down 21-0, Chris? You know what I mean? Like, where are these stats coming from? Because they haven't made the same impact of you winning. And I think that's why it can be misleading. Dak Prescott was having an unbelievable year, Chris, wasn't he, before he got hurt? 450 yards, 500 yards. He was having an unbelievable year, but they couldn't win any games.
Well, now you're right. They obviously would start out very slow, and he'd come on in the second half. Right. But also the defense couldn't get anything done. And I'm not absolving Dak.
No, I'm just saying.
But you know what I'm saying?
But Dak was having one of his best years, and yet they couldn't win.
I also think, though, we can't just look at numbers and say, oh, he's got big numbers, but their record is 2-6, and say he's having a bad year. All numbers, you make a great point. There are some numbers, and probably because you watch Matt Stafford. I was about to call him Stat Padford. But you watch him for so many years,
I
Rob,
watched him his entire career, Chris. I just did from day one.
Yeah, and there are other guys. Dak has done that at times. But I'm not going to put that. Like, I'm not down on Deshaun the way that some of these evaluators are. Now, I will say this. I don't think he should have been tier 1 at the beginning of the season. I think there are 3 tier 1 quarterbacks in the league. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers.
And that's it.
That's my tier 1. Now, look, tier 2 is good. I look at my tiers compared to Sando's tiers.
Right.
And I think mine are a little higher. Like, tier 2 is really good. I mean, tier 2, Breeze. I don't put Breeze tier 1 because of the lack of arm strength at this stage of his career. He doesn't throw it, deep anymore.
It's hard to argue with that because He's not the same quarterback.
No.
If you're being honest, he's not. He is definitely. And the same thing. You don't have Brady in there because Brady's not the same quarterback.
I got Brady tier 2. You know, I do. I don't know if you'll have him that high, but I got him, Lamar.
That's the most objective thing I've heard you say about Tom Brady.
I said he was horrible on Monday, but you didn't hear that because you were ranting. Your music was playing. The hat was on, but it was covering up your ears.
Yes, it was. I mean, my hat was on backwards and covering my ears. I'm the poo-poo king.
But, yeah, no, I mean, so I would never have had Watson at tier 1 at this stage so far. So I think he is in the tier 2. And a big part of it, Rob, look, and I'm not saying he hasn't, padded some stats here and there. But their defense, last year, their defense gave up 24 points a game. This year, they're giving up 30. And the offense is actually scoring more this year, only by a point, 23 last year, 24 this year. But the offense really, despite the loss of DeAndre Hopkins, which was big. Look at how Hopkins is helping Kyler Murray in Arizona. But Watson is playing good football. He's averaging almost 300 yards a game. That's by far a career high. His passer rating is 6th in the league, but on pace to be the best of his career. He's averaging more yards per attempt than he ever has. He's 68% completion percentage, better than last year. The problem is the team is not as good. And, yeah, we look at quarterbacks to carry a team, but maybe that's asking too much right now. Because the defense can't stop anybody, and he's lost one of his best receivers. He's still got a good receiving core. I'm not going to give him that excuse, but losing arguably the best receiver in the league is going to affect some quarterbacks. But that's where I see it,
But the Seahawks defense is terrible as well.
Well, and Russell's better.
And I know I get that, but I'm just saying, Chris, there's a little bit of an, eye test. Deshaun was, if you remember when he burst onto the scene, he was another one of those guys where it was eye-popping, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Oh, my God, did you see Deshaun Watson? I don't know if we've said that lately or felt that way. No?
Well, I think it's the losses. I really do. I think if they were, and granted, this is crazy to kind of say if they were 6-2, because obviously a lot goes into that.
Right.
But Rob, he's on pace to throw the most touchdowns of his career. His TD to interception ratio is the best of his career. 17 TDs, 5 interceptions. Last year was 26 TDs, 12 interceptions. So my point is, and I get what you're going. You can't always just judge by the stats. Absolutely correct. However, they got major problems elsewhere. Obviously, they've had the coaching change. That's big. There's all types of stuff going on in that front office. I think losing DeAndre Hopkins, mess with guys, mentalities coming in. You let a guy like that go with years left on his deal? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know that they even entered the season with the right mentality.
And here's the other part, too. He wants to be involved in the hiring of the coach and personnel. Maybe that's a little bit too much going on as well, especially when you're not winning.
Right, no doubt. And you're young. He's young.
What are you worried about that for, man? Master your trade. Play better to where we've seen Aaron Rodgers play an entire career, Chris. He has no say.
Right. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers.
Tom Brady.
Joe Montana.
They don't have any say, and they're not concerned about it. What are they concerned about? Playing.
Well, I think, Rob, that happens too. And I don't know that this for a fact that he would not have had that mentality had this not happened. But when you see some of the moves, Jadeveon Clowney's gone. A DeAndre Hopkins gone. When you see your front office making some of these moves, I think you tend to think, these guys need help, to put it kindly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just think that if they were making moves that he agreed with, and let's face it, that all these moves all of us think these were crazy. I think that kind of lends itself to a guy saying, I would like some help. He probably thinks he's being polite the way he's saying it. You know what I mean? But so generally, though, are you a little bit down on Deshaun? Or more down than you were compared to where you were at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not saying he can't play and he can't rebound, and I get what's going on there with a coaching change and just the way things have happened, So there's a lot of other things, Chris, but I don't know. Maybe it's because there's so many other quarterbacks out there as well. Maybe, you know what I mean? And they're doing much. That has something to do with it as well, but he's not must-see. He's not
well, I'll give you, like I said, I would have never had him in tier 1 to start the season. So I'm kind of, he is a tier 2 quarterback in my view at this point. But I think this is also a good lesson, Rob. I mean, we've been talking about Kyler Murray, right? I said I'd take him over Lamar Jackson, for the future. And Lamar, look, they're still winning. It's hard to be too critical of Lamar, but obviously his numbers are down. It's a lesson to be careful in jumping on too quickly. Now, obviously, you look at a Joe Burrow, you look at a Justin Herbert, and even a Murray and these guys, and you say, those guys are really good. And they are. But before we mint them, right? Before we say they're tier 1, let's let it play out a little bit. Now, I don't think that's the case with Pat Mahomes. He's won a Super Bowl.
Right.
But most young guys, let's give it a little time. I mean, Tua now. And I like what I've seen so far. Obviously,
but it's
in game
way
2.
Premature. Way premature.
Absolutely.
Because there's an adjustment period, Chris, we talk about all the time until they get some film on you. Right. It takes a little while.